Welcome to another Oppenheimer Who Is with Aubrey Alvarez. So, Aubrey, how do most people know you?
Well, it's hard because so before I was in my role with Eat Greater Des Moines, I would have said people knew me because I taught them an aerobics class because I was in corporate wellness for a long time and I taught aerobics at a lot of places and step and cycle and all of that. So a lot of times people would be like, I know you from somewhere. And then especially if I was like showered and like had regular clothes on, they're like, oh my God, like now I know what it is. Like I'm just used to seeing you looking really sweaty and disgusting. I'm like, oh, I do look like that a lot. So now it's mostly through our work. In my role as executive director of Eat Greater Des Moines, a lot of that is making connections and doing stuff in the food space. So usually if someone has heard of me now, it's because I was probably out there somewhere talking about food rescue and food waste and, raising a little bit of hell about that.
Food rescue, just to clarify for individuals, I mean, because there's food banks, there's food rescue is something I think isn't always known enough about. I mean, what is sort of the general landscape of how all this works and fits together?
Mm-hmm. I think if anything, this pandemic has shined a light on a lot of opportunities and issues. And, one of those things everyone's right now dealing with is food shortages. And you're scared about like, what's going to happen? What if we run out of food? And, honestly, before, we were wasting 16,500 meals a day in our community just because it doesn't have a use where it's at. So I think a lot of times people think of food rescue as it is, at catered events or even in your own home when you don't plan and you go to the grocery store hungry, like that's definitely some of it. But a lot of it is just when you go into a grocery store or a convenience store and you see these shelves that are full of food, not all of that gets sold and not all of it gets sold, especially for perishable items when the store thinks it's maybe at its peak quality. So it gets tossed. And that's the part that's really unfortunate because it's easy to throw away food. And that's kind of how all of these systems have been, really kind of shifted recently. Instead of really valuing the food and making sure it does go to its highest and best use, it's been really easy to throw it in the garbage and forget about it. So, I think that now is one of those times where people, because we've all faced just a little bit of how it feels like if you think, there's not going to be any toilet paper anymore and people lost their minds and had to buy all the toilet paper, then maybe we're starting to recognize like, you know what, we are really lucky and we have access to all of this, all of these resources. Maybe we should just be better stewards of that and not take for granted that it's always going to be here and it's always going to be available and easy to access. Let's just be better stewards of it and make sure when we have it, it gets used, and if we can't use it, that we pass it along and it goes to, it could be, a food pantry, a free meal site. A big focus of our work is just also putting food where people are. It shouldn't be difficult, especially when you look at food. Come and Go is a good example of all of their fresh prepared sandwiches, salads, wraps, hot case items. Their policies, they don't sell any of those wraps after 72 hours. And I understand if you're selling it for $4, you want it to be, the best quality for that customer, but there's nothing wrong with it. We have food in our fridge that's maybe double that time period. So, there's nothing wrong with it. And that's where the opportunity comes in is instead of tossing it, which is what many, many places do, is they've set it aside, we pick it up, and then we're able to take it to affordable housing communities or medical clinics or food pantries or schools. And that's what we want more people to like. That should be the norm. We want people to be more concerned to say like, wait a second, you're throwing it away and it's still fine, instead of like, oh, this is just how it is. We just throw away perfectly good food when there's thousands of people that need it. It's a bummer. No, we can do better and we should be doing better.
When you live with someone from the Caribbean in your house, the only expiration dates are basically, does this smell bad enough that someone might actually go to the hospital now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we
There's just
food
more
recovery is
probiotics.
what's that?
There's just more probiotics. Like it's just all extra bacteria. Like any of the yogurt. I was definitely one of those food date label snobs, just because when I grew up, you never knew. Like stuff could have been 6 years old. There's still times I've gone to my parents' house and I'm like, this coffee creamer was purchased in like 2014. Like, it is time for it to go. So I was scared of open items a lot of times. So it's definitely taken some retraining for me to be like, these dates don't always actually mean anything. And if it hasn't been opened yet and it's a yogurt, and it's 2 months past due, you're okay. You're fine. But yeah, I'm trying to go beyond my upbringing, that's for sure.
If you could wake up tomorrow and do anything, money, location, experience, none of it matters. You wake up tomorrow, what do you do?
I would make it so, I don't know, I don't want it to be all policy stuff, but I feel like that would be one of the easiest things to just make it so that, well, we just talked about food waste. Like you can't throw stuff, we don't throw away perfectly good stuff. Like it's illegal to have all of these good things that keep getting tossed just because we don't need it or use it anymore. So mostly that's like, I'd love to see a organics ban happen, around here. That will never, that's really kind of out there, but just making it, I feel like hunger and all of these like poverty and challenges is, if we just didn't waste as much of the stuff that we had and made it easier for people to have it and have it with dignity, that would be amazing. But I don't want to be president. That sounds awful. But if you could just make a couple, laws that would be better, that I'd go for that.
It turns out anyone can do it. So
I know. That is what I learned recently. I always thought you had to be a lot smarter and know how to like do policy stuff. So I am just as chance as anyone else.
it turns out you don't even actually need to know policy to be one of the policy experts anymore. I mean, it's nice to see accessibility offered
at
such a high level.
Really opening up the doors for just any old person to come in there. You don't have to know much. And I would say, like, if you at least have the base minimum of being a quality human being and caring about others, like that's even an extra step above. Like,
yeah,
we're really getting somewhere. So that's not even required. So
yeah, no, I mean, he's opened a lot of doors. I mean, obviously, just don't be a minority or anyone else. But
well, and don't, like, if you don't have at least a few $1 million in an offshore account, like, peace out. You're not made for office. So
yeah, I mean, there's no point in having just a little amount of debt. You should have just a lot of debt. Like, there's no point in like having $150,000 mortgage. You should have like $5 billion.
I've been trying to explain that to my husband, and he is just not getting on board. Like, he's just hates debt. It's just ridiculous. Like, why not? Yeah. Why can't we have all the stuff and just, we'll pay it sometimes later. I don't know if you ever had to. We've never, like, the national debt seems to be like, we've never had to pay it back. So can't we just like make that server break or something and start over? I don't know.
Have you not watched Mr. Robot? It's like the best hacking show in the history of TV.
Oh, no.
Have you not?
No.
Oh, dude. Mr. Robot, I unfortunately don't love it enough to pay for the premium subscription to see the current final season, but I'm getting to the point where I almost cannot take the fact that I can't access it for free on, I think it's either Hulu or Amazon right now. I'm going to buy it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's finally killing me.
I know quarantine will do that. Like, there's definitely been some things where I'm like, all right, it's time. I will pay the premium for whatever movie it is. Like, we rented, not quite the same, but Trolls 2 when it came out on video, and you only have it for 48 hours. and it cost you $28 or $20 to have it for 48 hours. We watched it at least 7 times in that 48 hours, but I timed it wrong and it ran out on Sunday morning. I bought it again. I was like, no. I will pay $40 to rent this movie again just because I can't handle it. So yeah, I've made some.
That's still half the price of going to the theater once. So
that's what my husband said. Like, we would have easily spent that in snacks and movie tickets and, you know, all of that at the movie theater. But yeah, one of my neighbors was like, I don't know, I just, you know, spending $20 seems ridiculous. And I was like, well, if it makes you feel better, I've spent $40. So you're fine if you just do it once.
There's like 50 rabbit holes to go down there, and I promise you we can until we have time. However, I've finally gotten us onto a 15-minute schedule on this first part, so I'm still going to shoot for it. I don't think we'll make it, but let's work on it. So you're in charge of everything. You're the boss. You say, this is going to change anything in the world. What are the first 3 things you snap your fingers and it's different?
Transparency. I feel like a lot of money, like where money is, where money goes, who has it, how it moves around, we don't know or see any of that, and it's why we're not seeing the changes. So having transparency, I've been talking more about that within the food space. You know, we can figure this out, but there's obviously enough people benefiting from it not getting figured out for anyone to actually make the changes that need to happen. So we need some transparency to be like, okay, so, you know, if Walmart is able to, you know, they donate all of this excess food that they have to a food bank, and then they get this tax benefit, then, you know, that looks great. But when it comes time to advocate for, well, Walmart, you know, are you paying your employees enough to not have to use that food bank that you just donated to? Then everyone's like, oh no, we can't do that. So I feel like those kinds of things we just need to shine a light on it, because I think everyone's frustrated that, you know, we can't see why some of these decisions are made. And so once you start to see like where the money is, where it goes, who's got more of it, who wants more of it, then things will start moving. And I think that's the one big thing. Just some more transparency would be great. My second change would be, I don't know, like, I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough about all the environmental opportunities. But again, I think when we talk about like where the money is and what's influencing decisions, that will also help us in that space. Because I think I grew up very naive to think like people would do what's best for the greater good, not just their own pocketbook. And I'm realizing, no, that's not how it works. So if we can have, again, more transparency into, we know that these things are harmful, whether it's for people or for the environment, and we're just not going to do that anymore because now we know what's happening. So that would be one. And I would get away, we would just stop we would move to free Medicare for all. So I just tossed that one in. It's just been recently when someone mentioned, like, you can't change, like, our current health system was built as a business, not as, like, just to keep people healthy and help them stay healthy and get healthy. And I don't know how you change that without completely, like, there's too much money and too many people that would lose money or power in that space. So I don't know. I haven't ever said, like, I don't necessarily say Medicare for all. I don't know enough about that, but I know we can't keep doing what we're doing right now. So I would change that. If we just broke it a bit and made people who have a bunch of really valuable healthcare right now who don't pay for it or recognize how lucky they are, and they had to feel what it feels like to not be able to do that, maybe there would be more, like, motivation to make it better for everybody. I don't know.
Empathy seems to be an exceedingly rare commodity in a lot of spaces currently. Well, I think I don't know.
I think so. That's the part I think that's been most like frustrating and sad, and that's the part, like, especially with the pandemic and this whole, COVID, I think we've seen a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't care about it until it affects me personally, which, okay, like and why that has to be the bare minimum for anything. Like, oh, well, none of my family members have died from this, virus, so screw the rest of you. I'm going to go to, Target with my no mask. It's just some of those things where I'm like, is it really that hard to just not be a jerk and care about someone else's health, and just, I don't know, that kind of stuff has made me start to be like, what has happened? Like, where are we that, asking someone to do the right thing for the sake of, thousands of other people that maybe you don't know or see is ridiculous. So I don't know. It's being trapped. I've spent, 2 months at home with my husband and children working from home. That was a sacrifice. Like, you can wear a mask. I haven't had anyone personally impacted, but I have sacrificed my own sanity and, spent a lot on Netflix and Amazon Prime for Trolls movies and things like that. So you can just wear a mask for a hot second.
I've got an answer to that, which I'll run by you. I think I found the key. However, last question of our initial 4.
Yes.
Most innovative failure.
That one's easy. Robotic retail.
I was literally assuming you would bring that one up because I still actually am sort of gutted that hasn't worked yet. Explain.
So robotic retail was one of our eCareer Des Moines projects that I think it was 2015. So we were really new. It was when the Community Foundation had done it. They were doing this Ignite Innovation fund or contest that they were trying to put money into innovative ideas within the nonprofit space. So what made it different was, usually with grant applications, it's, 70 pages of how is this all going to work in 17 budgets? And yeah, it's innovative, but tell us every single detail of how it's going to work. And, it's really challenging. So this one, it was just a paragraph, like, what's your idea? How do you think it would work? And it just so happened that at the same time, we were with DMARC, this company, at the time they were called Oasis 24/7. They have these units that are used a lot in Europe and overseas. The technology was built there that it's really red box for food. So it's a shipping container that's been retrofitted with a robotic arm and conveyor belt system. So you can fill it. It can be refrigerated, freezer, whatever you need. And you can fill it with grocery items. So instead of a typical vending machine where you got to survive the drop, you could put bread, milk, eggs, things in there because it uses the conveyor belt. And what makes it, great is it's a shipping container and it can be put anywhere that you can get power and Wi-Fi. So our idea, because this company at the time, they had a unit, but it wasn't up and running. So for them, they wanted one up and running so that potential customers could see it and buy it. For us, we saw it as an opportunity to put food in a food desert where it isn't usually accessible without having to pay for all of the infrastructure, and of a brand new store and all these employees. So that was our idea, was to use this unit, fill it with food, and then put it in an area where there wasn't easy access. So at the time we were pitching, it was before the Hy-Vee downtown was there. So our initial plan was to put it near DART and, just see what happens. Well, we won. And it's like, oh God, no, we have to do it. So I had my first baby and we went in and made our pitch, and then we kept moving forward and I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. So then we won, and mind you, so we have $30,000. We don't own land, and we have a timeline. So unfortunately, part of it was just I still think it's a good idea. Like the unit was here. So our first thing was just trying to find a spot for it. Ultimately, we found a spot. Polk County Health, they were willing to put it in their parking lot. Polk County was going to pay for all of the stuff that needed to happen so they could get power and Wi-Fi. And then the wheels started to fall off. So first was the city, we needed to have a variance because of the sidewalks. And I'm like, I've never used a variance. Don't have any idea what any of that was. So we were just trying to go through like, okay, so what do we need to do? We'll go get the variance. We did that, went and got the variance. And then came okay, you need a permit from the city of Des Moines. And I was like, what permit? Like, what's the name of the permit that we need? You need a permit. I'm like, what's it called? Like, you would think like, okay, so what is it? You've got like, this is the first time anyone's put one of these units anywhere in the United States. You're telling me you've got permits already for it? So I wasn't deterred because I'd already spent a year working on it. So I was like, all right, we'll get a permit. So go try to do that. Ultimately, we couldn't get a permit from the city of Des Moines, was long story short. So
what was the permit you're supposed to get?
Yeah, I still don't know. There's no name. No idea. They just said they needed wind and snow loads for the unit before they would issue a permit. And I was like, okay. What I didn't realize was this unit had been built in Atlanta, so they don't really deal with snow there. So it's not automatically something that they would just include in their engineering, like testing kind of stuff. And it had been their, test one, and they weren't working with them anymore. So we couldn't go back to them and ask them to provide it. And the other part was no one was ever in this unit. Like, again, the only time you go in it is to restock it. So it's not like someone's constantly in there. So that part was somewhat kind of challenging to understand. So when we couldn't get the company to give us the wind and snow loads that the city wanted, then my only option was to reach out to other structural engineers to see if any of them would look at the design and the plans and like help figure that out. I also learned that apparently that's frowned upon. Engineers won't certify somebody else's design, which I can kind of understand it. But the really frustrating one part was at the same time we were trying to get this project to move forward, the city was having all these conversations about like, we really have some challenges with food access and we have all these food deserts. What should we be doing as a city? And I'm like, oh, what? You think we've got a pretty amazing project right here. Could you just give us a permit for it? And we never got it. And then it just so happened, instead of being able to try to, I think our initial goal was to put it in an urban location that had low access, didn't have a grocery store. The other side, and other opportunity, was to put it in a rural location that didn't have a grocery store. But by the time we had spent a year trying to even just get this far, it just so happened that the land where the unit had been sitting all that time got sold. So the owners of the, machine, they were moving it somewhere. And if we couldn't tell them where to move it, then I think it went to New Orleans is who ended up getting it. But then we lost the machine. So, it was $250,000. So it's not like we're gonna, find one of those again. But that was my innovative failure that also got to be on a really big scale. But because the Community Foundation, backed it and we won, we were the first one to win this innovation contest, and they had to do it the next year. And we're like, we failed. It didn't work. But, we got some national press and all sorts of excitement about it. And I had someone call me about it probably last week or the week before. So people are still asking, like, they think it, that it did end up happening. I think they're all surprised that it was the permit that kind of totally threw that off track. But I do think it would still work, and I would totally still help someone get it up and running. It's just not going to be me. So I would be happy to help someone else do it.
I didn't know the only thing you needed was the wind and snow load. I mean, like,
That was it.
I do wind calcs for people from time to time, and the snow load thing isn't that shouldn't be that major of an issue.
It seemed like that's the part, though. There was a lot of stuff that me not doing this before and not working in that space, like, that was probably good because I didn't realize. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be that hard. Like, I'll just go and we'll just do it. And it just felt like the goalpost just kept getting moved. Like,
Yeah.
all right, well, that didn't deter her. All right, let's try this. And, you know, that was like ultimately, and then time just ran out. So that was not great. But if I do need anything wind or snow load now, good to know.
I had no idea.
Like, oh, yeah.
I had no idea that was your issue, because I actually do. I will do wind load calcs for certain things and actually stamp them. So.
Dang it. Well, you want to bring back robotic retail? I don't.
Okay, good. I was gonna say I can give you a long answer that's gonna get us to no, but
Yeah, I would be happy to. It was one of those things that was super frustrating for a lot of reasons, but it was also a really good lesson because that was way too in the weeds. You know, by that time we were a team of 1.5 people. Like, this is way out of our depth. So I think that was a good lesson too, to be like, I still support this, but it's not our role to do that necessarily. Our role is to try to create space and get someone else to do it and help support them in being successful. So that's where I'll focus from now on. Is first question, what kind of permit do you need? You would have thought I would have learned my lesson about permits, but no, I run into that one every time.
yeah, I mean that's the. Speaking of permits and permitted times,
Yes.
we've blown our 15 minutes.
Well,
So, but don't worry, I've got like 25 more questions if you're willing, and we got some time.
I'm in.
So
Yes.
we will do the hard stop